Now, West Asia continues to remain on the brink. Donald Trump has again issued an ultimatum as the United States is ramping up its military presence, and Iran has also issued a direct warning to Washington. Any attack by the Americans, say the Iranians, will trigger a decisive response. Now, Tehran has said that the American bases and all military assets across the region will become legitimate targets if the Americans staged any kind of military adventurism there. The message is blunt and the stakes are global. Our next report tells you more.
A flashpoint is forming. Forces are on the move. Commanders on alert. And beneath the diplomatic noise, military muscle is tightening. Iran has delivered one of its toughest warnings yet at the United Nations. Tehran says if the US launches military aggression, it will respond immediately and forcefully. Not just symbolic rhetoric, real firepower, real intent. This comes as the Pentagon has surged additional assets into West Asia. New US warships, fighter squadrons and missile defense batteries have been deployed across the Gulf. Carrier strike groups are repositioned. Long-range bombers rotate through allied bases. Every move signaling deterrence, but also preparations for conflict. And the words from the US president are ominous.
Yeah.
Today on Iran, bad things will happen if
Yeah,
Iran
bad
doesn't
things,
make
really
a
bad
deal.
things.
What will that?
I'm not going to talk to you about that.
What is the goal if there is a U.S. military
Well, we're
strike?
going to make a deal, or we're going to get a deal one way or the other.
But with a military strike, is it to wipe out their nuclear
I'm not going
program?
to talk to you about that, but we're either going to get a deal, or it's going to be unfortunate for them.
And you said today's 10 days. Give them a deadline firm to make a deal?
I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
Iran, however, says it will not be deterred. Tehran now openly declares US military bases and assets across the region as legitimate targets in the event of an attack. That extends from airfields in the UAE, Qatar and Bahrain to Iraq and Syria. And Iran's threat isn't limited to ballistic missiles and armed drones. Tehran has quietly built a lethal maritime playbook to unsettle larger navies. Fast attack speedboats swarm in waves, low, agile, hard to track. Mini submarines, sometimes called black holes, lurk silent beneath the waves. Ready to emerge and strike, swarms of torpedo-armed craft can surface in seconds. Mines can choke key waterways. In the narrow waters of the Strait of Hormuz, these forces can appear without warning. Now, two powerful militaries watch each other across a volatile chessboard. One misstep could trigger a cascade no one truly wants. The warning has been sent. The countdown, yet unspoken, continues. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now to put all of this in perspective, you're joined on this broadcast by retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, who's joining us live from Sterling in Virginia. He is a military expert and also the host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Colonel Davis, thank you very much for joining us here on WION. Now, according to reports that are coming in, the US's Gerald R. Ford has now entered into the Mediterranean. This is in the aftermath of Donald Trump repeatedly having issued threats that some bad things will happen to Iran if a deal is not reached. Now, speaking from a purely military perspective, what is the significance of an aircraft carrier like Gerald R. Ford entering into the Mediterranean? If the United States wants to carry out some kind of a kinetic strike on Iran, does it already not have enough military hardware in the Persian Gulf to carry this out?
Well, that depends entirely upon what the objective is. If it's some kind of a demonstration, if it's some kind of we're trying to coerce or pressure the Iranians into a deal that we like, you can ramp up that pressure and you don't need as much, or at least you need an escalating to go up. But if you're trying to get a regime change, if you're trying to destroy the Iranian form of government, then I argue that all of this together, to include the Ford, the Abraham Lincoln, and all the ground forces, the ground power that's there with Air Force and other things, it's not going to be enough. Because you cannot, in my view, it's very unlikely, I'll put it that way, very unlikely that you can knock a regime out purely by air power and missiles if you don't have a ground threat to go in, which is what the United States did in 2003 and in 1991 when it went into Iraq. And without that ground component, in my view, you're basically rolling the dice to hope that you can catch somebody above ground and kill them. But see, the problem with even that is that Iran is certainly well aware of what's coming. They know that there is a tremendous amount of firepower, and it is substantial. I don't want to underplay that. But they are prepared for that. They're prepared for a continuity of government plan. So if key leaders get killed, others are already ready to step in. They are spreading them out throughout the country. They're spreading their air defense out. They're spreading their air offensive capabilities out. And all they have to do, their primary objective is to survive. We, on the other hand, would have to succeed and win a war, and the standard for that is much, much higher than it is for the Iranian side, and I fear we may be starting something that we cannot quickly resolve.
I think that's an interesting point that you say that this could be the start of something that the American president would not be able to quickly resolve. Now, all through these years, Donald Trump has been talking against the American involvement in these foreign wars, but now he's on the brink of making what would arguably be the most decisive moment of his presidency that would shape his legacy going forward. In your assessment, do you think Donald Trump wants to get embroiled in a long, drawn-out war, or is he trying to attempt something like what he did in Venezuela, although Iran is not Venezuela, and can he succeed here?
Well, that's the key point you just made there. Iran is not Venezuela. In terms of what he wants, yeah, I think that he probably does. He would love a quick, decisive, sharp, easy victory that he can then walk away with. Something's not going to get him bogged down and sucked into a long, drawn-out war. He definitely does not want that. The problem is that I think that maybe some of his advisors, and I'm talking about both political and military advisors, may be giving him information that says, I think that we can accomplish this mission. I think that we can get it done in a probably a couple of week period of time, 2 or 3 weeks, probably, maybe a month or at the most 2, I think, is what he may be being told. But even that would be really problematic for him. And that's if everything goes well. And I just don't think it's going to go well. Because I'll just tell you, militarily, the absolute worst time to attack is when the other side has had a lot of time to prepare physically and psychologically. This is not good for our side.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Davis, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.